NoPrepSchool.com presents Summer Constellations, a free website course for grades 2 through 4. Where are the stars? Some people might not know this, but not all star patterns are visible at all times. In fact, some are only visible for a very short period of time each year. For example, Orion is not visible in the northern hemisphere in summer because the bright sun is out at the same time. This blocks it from your view. Each season has certain star patterns that can be found in the night sky if you know what to look for. During the summer months, the pattern that most people like to find is the summer triangle. This triangle is made up of the brightest stars from 3 constellations, and it's quite easy to recognize once you know where to look. Star patterns are a collection of stars in the same general area in the sky. From ancient times, people on Earth have tried to make sense of the world around them, and maps were one way to do this. When you look at a globe, you can see several things at the same time. For example, you could see a few great masses of dry brown land and a lot of blue ocean, and if you've learned about the different parts of land, you can see continents like North and South America. With a little more knowledge, you can see the larger countries on the continents, like America, Canada, Russia, and China. And with some studying, you can pick out areas in the countries where the major cities are. Looking at the globe in this way makes it easier to understand the different places on Earth. And maps only make sense if you know how to read them. The same thing is true of star patterns. You must first learn how to read the patterns in the sky in order for them to make sense. When you look up into the night sky, there isn't even the major difference of brown land and blue ocean to help you make sense of where things are. It's pretty black and it has a lot of little twinkling lights, but we can make sense of this deep dark sky, and we use the constellations to help us do that. A constellation is a made-up pattern in the stars that helps people on Earth understand what they are looking at and where these deep space objects reside in the universe. All that black space makes looking for patterns in the sky a little overwhelming, but if you know what to look for, it starts to make sense. The constellations are named after characters in mythology, and so the patterns you will learn about also come about from these ancient stories of man and the gods. Before we take a look at the constellations of summer in the northern hemisphere and winter in the southern hemisphere, you should understand that the constellations revolve around a center point. The stars near the center point are called pole stars. In the northern hemisphere, the constellations all revolve around the North Star. The southern hemisphere also has a pole star, but you can't really see it. The North Star is called Polaris and is located in the constellation Ursa Minor, or the Little Bear, underneath the large constellation of Draco, the dragon. The North Star is important for northerners because many other stars can be located using it as a reference. In this unit study, we are going to use Cygnus, the swan, to locate our constellations, but you can use Polaris to find Cygnus too. You will also learn the story behind the constellations as well as the major stars within the pattern. We will be exploring the following constellations: Aquila, Cygnus, Lyra, Sagittarius, and Scorpius. Aquila. In ancient mythology, Aquila was a great eagle that carried the thunderbolts of Zeus or Jupiter. Aquila was known to stargazers for many thousands of years and was mentioned several times by ancient astronomers. Aquila is located within the Milky Way and has 3 major stars: Altair, Alshain, and Tarazed. The brightness of stars is measured in magnitude, with the brightest stars measuring about -1. All the brightest stars have a value that is less than 0, so they are all negative. Dim stars have a positive value. If you understand negative numbers, then it's easy to understand star magnitude. The lower the number, then the brighter the star. Altair is the brightest star in the Aquila constellation and shines at a magnitude of 0.77. It's also pretty close, only about 17 light years away from Earth. The name Altair is based off an Arabic phrase that meant the flying eagle. Altair also spins very fast, so fast, in fact, that the poles of the star are flattened. It only takes Altair 9 hours to complete one rotation, yet our sun takes 25 days to complete one rotation. And Altair is almost twice as big as our sun. Altair is one of the 3 stars that make up the summer triangle in the northern hemisphere. This picture is of the real Altair. Many pictures of stars are artistic representations, paintings, drawings, or touched-up photographs. But this is a real picture from a NASA instrument called an interferometer. Alshain is a yellow star that has a magnitude of 3.7, so it is not very bright at all. Tarazed is an orange star and has a magnitude of 2.6. Of these 2 stars, which one is brighter? Both Alshain and Tarazed come from an Arabic saying that means the balance. There are 7 more stars in the constellation Aquila, but they are not easily seen unless you have a telescope or binoculars. Cygnus. Cygnus is a swan from Greek mythology. There are many stories and characters about Cygnus, but one thing they have in common is transformation. In one story, Zeus becomes the swan. In another, Orpheus becomes a swan after he is murdered. And King Cygnus was also transformed into a swan. Transformation just means change. Cygnus has 2 major stars. Deneb, the brightest star at a magnitude of 1.5, is also part of the summer triangle. Albireo is the second brightest star that makes up the swan's head. Albireo is actually a double star, 1 blue and 1 yellow. You only see 1 star with the naked eye, but you can easily see the 2 stars of Albireo with a small telescope. Cygnus is also home to the first Earth-like exoplanet discovered by astronomers. An exoplanet is a planet outside of the solar system. This planet is estimated to have a surface temperature of about 73 degrees Fahrenheit, which makes it the perfect temperature for humans. Unfortunately, humans require many more things than a great temperature to live on a planet, so much more needs to be learned about these newly discovered planets outside of our solar system. This picture is an artistic representation of the exoplanet Kepler-22. That means it's not a photograph. It's someone's vision of what this planet might look like. Lyra is the 3rd constellation in the summer triangle, and it was named after the lyre used by Greek musician Orpheus. Orpheus was killed and found floating with his lyre on the beach of the Mediterranean. The Muses, the goddesses of art, sent his lyre up to the heavens and placed it among the stars. The brightest and most notable star of Lyra is Vega. Vega has a brightness of 0.03, which makes it the 5th brightest star in the sky. Vega was named after an Arabic word that meant falling or landing and is also referred to as the falling angel. Vega used to be the North Pole star. Well, if you lived about 14,000 years ago, that is. Right now, our pole star is Polaris, but the Earth wobbles as it rotates, and so it does not stay still in space. It takes about 25,000 years to move from one pole star to another, so in about 12,000 years, Vega will again be the pole star. The ancient Assyrians called Vega the judge of heaven. The ancient Akkadians called it the life of heaven. And the ancient Babylonians called Vega the messenger of light. Lyra has 2 other important stars, the first called Sheliak and the second called Sulafet. This is a star trail that shows that all the stars are centered around the current pole star Polaris. This is what it means to be a pole star. To create a photograph like this, the camera stays still while the Earth moves. This is called long exposure photography. When you find all the main stars of Aquila, Altair, Cygnus, Deneb, and Lyra, Vega, you can then find the summer triangle. Sagittarius and Scorpius. The last 2 constellations you will learn about in this unit are Sagittarius and Scorpius. Both of these constellations are low in the southern sky if you live in the northern hemisphere, and point to the center of the Milky Way. Scorpius was a scorpion in Greek mythology and is connected to Orion. In Orion's myth, he was boastful to Artemis, the goddess of the hunt, and said he would kill every animal on earth. Artemis was not at all impressed with him and sent the scorpion to kill Orion. Zeus saw the battle between Orion and Scorpius and was impressed. So he sent them both up into the sky as constellations. Scorpius is actually one of the few constellations that looks a little bit like the image it represents. You can almost see the tail and the pincers. Antares is the biggest star in Scorpius. It is a supergiant star and is about 883 times the radius of our Sun. Scorpius has many bright stars, but the brightest is Antares. Antares is a red supergiant star with a magnitude of 1.09. Compared to the Sun, Antares is huge. In fact, if we replaced our Sun with Antares, the outer edge of Antares would extend all the way to the space between Mars and Jupiter. That's how big our Sun is compared to the supergiant Antares. The teeny tiny little speck. The Sagittarius is not so easy to see, especially if you live in the higher northern latitudes, because it sits near or below the horizon. The story of Sagittarius comes from the mythological Greek creature, the centaur, which was half horse and half man. It is also called the archer, and the arrow of this constellation points towards Antares, the brightest star in Scorpius. Sagittarius points the way towards the center of the Milky Way. While it isn't easy to find Sagittarius, it is easy to find the asterism of the teapot. An asterism is a pattern contained within the constellation, much like the Big Dipper is within the constellation Ursa Major. There's a lot more to learn about the summer constellations, and this is just a simple beginner course. Be sure to complete the workbook, which can be downloaded from the link on the blog post, and don't forget to take the final test when you're done.